Hey, it's Maté with the Grayzone, and I'm here to give you my quick reaction to the long-awaited release of the Mueller findings. So let's first just hear what Mueller says on this core issue of whether or not there was a conspiracy between Trump and Russia. Mueller says this, quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities." And Mueller takes a very expansive view of what coordinated could mean. It's not just express, but also even tacit coordination. So that right there is an unambiguous rejection of the conspiracy theory that has dominated our politics for the last 2+ years. Heard constantly every single day from the corporate media and from prominent Democratic politicians that there is evidence of a Trump-Russia conspiracy, and we've been primed to expect that Mueller was going to uncover it. Well, his report is a profound rejection of that, and it means that the conspiracy theory has collapsed. Well, it's obviously a huge failure and an embarrassment for those who have peddled this conspiracy theory, Democratic elites.
Well, I think they're getting closer to knowing that the truth's going to come out, that there was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing those hacks and guiding them to the states and the localities where they came from. Some of that was Jared Kushner's responsibilities. Some of it was Donald Jr. I think you're going to probably see indictments of both of those people.
Prominent media pundits, especially on MSNBC.
All you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think...
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial.
Former members of the national security state, like John Brennan.
Of the Ides of March, when he is going to be delivering what I think are going to be his indictments, the final indictments, as well as the report that he gives to the Attorney General.
What makes you believe that he has more indictments?
Because he hasn't addressed the issues related to criminal conspiracy, as well as any individuals.
Criminal conspiracy involving the Russian influence?
Russians, yes, yeah.
But just because it's a humiliation for them, that does not mean it has to be a defeat for the broader efforts to stop Donald Trump. Because as some of us have been arguing, those of us on the margins have been arguing for the last 2 years, this Trump-Russia conspiracy theory was not only baseless, but it was extremely dangerous. It was distracting us from Trump's actual policies. It was channeling liberal resistance to Trump into faith into a conspiracy theory, faith into Robert Mueller uncovering it, all the while sort of disempowering actual efforts to take Trump on for all he did, and sort of taking away the attention that could have been paid to the serious damage that he has been doing. All the while, by the way, helping fuel really dangerous Cold War tensions between the US and Russia. The collapse of the conspiracy theory means that that can't be sustained anymore, and in its place, we have the opportunity, all of us who don't want to see Trump reelected, to stop handing him this re-election gift that Russiagate has given him, and actually pose a real resistance to mount a serious alternative to his policies. Now, of course, understandably, those who have peddled this Trump-Russia conspiracy theory for so long are moving the goalposts. First, we have people saying that, this focus on Russia was narrow and there were other crimes, forgetting the fact that this was the dominant question. This is the question that's been on everyone's mind for 2 years, whether or not there was a conspiracy between Trump and Russia. Then we're hearing crazy things, like understandably from the same people who've sprouted crazy conspiracy theories, like those on MSNBC, who are saying that there's possibly a cover-up, possibly the Attorney General under Trump's control, with possibly Mueller's complicity, is covering up the Trump-Russia collusion that Mueller didn't find.
But the fact that this investigation takes place within the Justice Department, which Donald Trump essentially controls, and that he got rid of the problem, Jeff Sessions, who the one decent thing that he did was just recuse himself. This guy is not recused. It feels like the seeds of a cover-up are here.
And of course, since Mueller did not find collusion, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to the fact that Mueller did not make a determination when it comes to the issue of obstruction. He basically punted on it. He said he laid out, according to Attorney General Barr, Mueller laid out the evidence for both sides and basically left it up to Barr, who decided that there was no obstruction based on the fact that given that Mueller found no Trump role in an underlying crime when it comes to Russian meddling, that Trump would have no grounds to obstruct an investigation into a crime he didn't commit. And so we're going to hear then many of the same people who peddled the conspiracy theory pivot to the obstruction issue and the fact that Mueller didn't weigh in on it.
President Trump is wrong. This report does not amount to a so-called total exoneration. Special counsel Mueller was clear that his report, quote, does not exonerate, close quote, the president. The special counsel spent 22 months uncovering evidence of obstruction and other misconduct. Attorney General Barr, who auditioned for his role with an open memorandum suggesting that the obstruction investigation was unconscionable.
So when it comes to obstruction, I was asked almost 2 years ago as to whether I could make a case for obstruction, and at the time I answered Brian Williams with "I think I can." I really still feel that I know I can now. I'm even stronger in feeling that there is an obstruction case.
Just like with the Iraq War, the list of prominent pundits and cable news hosts who got this so disastrously wrong is too long to mention. I mean, the obvious name is Rachel Maddow, who became the #1 rated cable news show by peddling night after night a conspiracy theory and ignoring all the evidence that undermined it and basically becoming a propagandist.
I mean, speaking hypothetically, if Vladimir Putin, for some reason, hypothetically, was in a position to be able to give orders to U.S. president, right? We're told that President Trump has tried to arrange this summit so that at one point in the summit, it will be him and President Putin in a room with no other Americans. There won't, as far as we understand, maybe not even an American translator there. So if President Putin were hypothetically in some sort of position where he could give orders to an American president behind closed doors, no other American would ever know what those orders were. This is unsettling, not just because it's one scandal among many. This is unsettling because if the worst is true, if the presidency is effectively a Russian op, right? If the American presidency right now is the product of collusion between the Russian intelligence services and an American campaign, I mean, that is so profoundly big. The outgoing president is very quietly leaving thousands of U.S. troops on Russia's doorstep on his way out the door. And here's the question. Is the new president going to take those troops out? After all the speculation, after all the worry, we are actually about to find out if Russia maybe has something on the new president. We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants. Intercepted communications among Russian intelligence figures during the campaign included frequent reference to Paul Manafort. I mean, take the view from Moscow. If you know a guy who needs a presidential campaign manager, how about our friend Paul? Right? From the Russians' point of view, who would be a better choice to run Donald Trump's presidential campaign? From our perspective in the United States, Paul Manafort made no sense. Who's he? From the Russian perspective, he would be the obvious choice.
We could spend time mocking them and debunking everything that they got wrong, but I think the fact that their conspiracy theory collapsed underscores the fact that they've already gotten way too much attention. The one thing to say, though, about them is that when you look at what they did, on top of getting it so wrong and becoming basically conspiracy theorists on cable TV, they sidelined so many important issues. We've heard so much about whether or not Trump is a Russian agent, what happened with Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, all these fringe characters who really, when it comes to whatever actual crimes they did, are so inconsequential compared to the actual crimes that Trump and his gang are committing every single day in the White House when it comes to their assault on the planet via their climate change denial, pulling out of the Paris Accords, pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal and threatening war on Iran, attempting a coup right now in Venezuela and trying to strangle the country with devastating sanctions in hopes that it submits. Here at home, the Muslim ban, the attacks on lower income and working people via the tax cuts, the greatest upward transfer of wealth in U.S. history, the assault on healthcare, the war on immigrants, this cruel, draconian Trump policy of locking up immigrant families, separating children from their families, punishing people who are fleeing the very conditions in Central American countries that the U.S. itself has helped create. I mean, the list of policies is endless, and the point is that all of this has been sidetracked because our media and political class was more concerned with focusing on a conspiracy theory. And the reasons for that are endless. It was great for ratings for MSNBC. It allowed them to pose as being anti-Trump while really actually not challenging Trump in any meaningful sense. Challenging Trump in any meaningful sense that would challenge the very same people who purchase corporate media ads and who literally own the corporate media. It was good for failed Democratic elites who lost a humiliating election to Donald Trump and needed an excuse for their own failures. It's been good for think tanks, people who profit off of heightened tensions with Russia, including the military-industrial complex. And by the way, focusing on this conspiracy theory has also meant sidelining the Trump policies that have escalated tensions with Russia, literally to the point of threatening existential peril. Because right now, Trump has, as we're focusing on whether or not Trump is doing Putin's bidding, Trump has seriously escalated tensions with Russia right in front of our eyes by pulling out of the INF nuclear treaty, by increasing U.S. war games and the troop presence on Russia's borders, by trying right now to undermine a vital gas pipeline between Germany and Russia, by bombing Putin's ally in Syria twice. I mean, all these reckless, dangerous policies have all gotten ignored, and we have to ask why. I mean, it's not just because we're consumed by Russiagate, but it's because these actual Trump policies all undercut the conspiracy theory that our political and media class became convinced of. As the journalist Maté has argued, Russiagate is basically the 2019 version of Iraqi WMDs. Except in the case of Iraq, obviously, the cost to human life was far greater. But in this case, I think the damage to the media's reputation will be far worse, because think about what we just endured for 2 years. Every single day, Russia, Russia, Russia. We were supposed to believe that Russia was going to imperil Trump's presidency. It was going to get him impeached. And millions of people have been hanging on to the hope that that would happen. They've been sold this by a media class and political class that assured them that there was evidence and that Mueller was going to find it. And how did they do that? Well, they ignored all the countervailing developments. And so some of us were looking at what was actually there. What was actually there repeatedly undermined this notion of a Trump-Russia conspiracy. But not only did they ignore the evidence that we were looking at, but they also ignored the people who were pointing it out. So that's why you would never see leftist skeptics of Russiagate put on MSNBC and even many other left or liberal or progressive platforms. Now I think that ruse can't be maintained anymore. The credibility of these people has been seriously damaged. It's a reminder of so many things. It's a reminder why we can't put our faith in liberal elites to mount a real resistance, when really they've shown again and again that instead of looking at their own selves and doing honest self-reflection, that they're most interested in sustaining their own privilege. The election of Donald Trump was a threat to their own privilege because A, they lost to him when they shouldn't have, and B, Trump ran as a working class champion. He conned enough people in the right states into believing that he would fight for the working class. And for Democrats to seriously challenge that and pose an alternative would have meant posing a challenge to the same corporate interests that they represent. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to acknowledge their own failures in that election, and so they doubled down on this conspiracy theory, and they've prioritized it above all else. And what's funny, there's an irony. Those of us who challenged this conspiracy theory, we were accused of being Trump defenders, when really our detractors had it in reverse. It was those people who have pushed this conspiracy theory above everything else, who have just given Trump a huge gift for his re-election. And we have a choice now, whether or not we want to keep listening to the people who have done that, or whether we want to think about being a real resistance, real journalists who follow the facts, not make decisions and make our claims and write articles and go on TV based on what we perceive to be its partisan utility, but based on what the actual facts are.
This is deliberate trafficking in unreality, right? This is garbage season. This is that's what it feels like to wade through this kind of stuff, right? But you know what? It's supposed to be disorienting. It's supposed to be demoralizing. It's supposed to be enervating. It's supposed to make you feel exhausted and like nothing is real, nothing makes sense, everything is too hard to work your way through. That's the point. It's supposed to make you not believe anything anymore. It's supposed to sap your morale. It's supposed to stop your will to fight or to even believe in anything important. It's information warfare. It has a point. It's supposed to make you feel bad.